Hey everyone, it's Mr. Wild194. I hope you're doing well today. I have another book review for a Goosebumps book written by R.L. Stine. It's one of my personal favorites of all time, and about 2 weeks ago when I went on vacation, as I mentioned in my previous review for The Haunting of Hill House from Shirley Jackson, I read a few books. This is one of them, and again, it's one of my favorites. I love it. I think it's one of the best Goosebumps covers of all time from the old 90s classic series, not a GYG book, not a Most Wanted book, not a Series 2000 book, not a Most Wanted or anything like that. And I dropped it. Let me grab that. This particular one is called You Can't Scare Me. I love this cover. If you can't see it that well, let me put it closer here for you folks out there who also love covers. Man, look at that. Look at these monsters. These are called the Mud Monsters. So, You Can't Scare Me is about 120, I think? Let me look it up. There's always a preview in the back. The next preview is One Day at Horrorland, as a matter of fact. There's 120 pages in this story. Of course, this is a middle grade book. Probably not going to be for everybody, but if you're a big horror fan like myself, specifically if you love urban legend type stuff, this is the way I always try to sell this book when I talk to people on my main YouTube channel called Michael Goosebumps Fan, where I talk about Goosebumps stuff. I try to sell people on the idea that if they love urban legends, this one and Ghost Camp are the big ones to start out with, especially with classic original Goosebumps stuff from the 90s, from the original 62-book series. This is fantastic. I love it. I don't care what anybody in the community says. A lot of people in the community hate this one for whatever reason, or they think it's extremely bland and disappointing. In my personal opinion, I get the criticisms of certain things of this book, but everything from the humor to the kind of darker tone, the mysterious atmosphere of this, the elements to it in the story, and I'll get to that in a moment, all of those things culminate into this great book that I really, really, really love. I really love it. I think a lot of people don't admire this book the way it should have been. And to be early on in the original 62-book series, it seems to me like there's a lot of care put into this book, and a lot of ideas that R.L. Stine had, even the marketing teams had, to try to make the Mud Monsters a bigger thing. And man, I can't tell you, I would kill for a Goosebumps sequel to this book, even in the modern era, with Slappy World being the modern-day series of Goosebumps. I love You Can't Scare Me. What is this book about? Basically, you have our main character kid. I don't know his name. I'm not really good with Goosebumps character kids because there's not really a whole lot of focus on who they are, their names. They're kind of just either first person or third person, and you don't really care one way or another most of the time. But they're relatable, they're nice, they're fun. Sometimes they're more sadistic, but they're kind of fun sadistic. You know what I mean? Not like let's kill cats in the sewers or anything like that, but they're kind of like in this fun way of, you know, I want to go on a wild adventure, I don't want my parents to know. It's that kind of thing, you know? And in this particular one, a group of kids, mainly these four main kids we follow, that are friends, go on a field trip to this kind of nature thing. You know, they have to take a checklist out there, kind of take down notes of different things they observe out in this woodsy, forest, tropical type of thing. Not really tropical, but you know what I mean. What kind of bugs they see, what kind of moss they see on rocks and that kind of thing. They're supposed to take notes of all these things, and they happen to have a situation where a young girl named Courtney in that group, who's kind of a condescending, rude person. Essentially, Courtney never gets scared of anything. They happen to come across her holding, I think it was a couple of tarantula. No, it was a couple of bees, as a matter of fact. It was a couple of bees that she's holding onto in her hand. They're not stinging her or anything. She's just holding them. They're not afraid of her. And our main character and his best friend, and the other two girls later on in the story, seem to all be agitated with the fact that she just has this I'm better than you type of thing. And if you've ever dealt with somebody like that in school or otherwise as an adult, it pisses you off, doesn't it? Don't you just want to affect those people? You really want to bother them in some way, fashion, or form. And our main characters pretty much decide that's what they're going to do. And our main guy that we're really reading about does everything he can to plot one thing after another to try to frighten this young girl. It doesn't matter if it comes to calling her and trying to get her to come out to her secret tree house to try to scare her out there or anything. He's determined he's going to try to freak her out in some way, fashion, or form. He just wants to see her get scared just once, because she always seems very rude about how she's not scared. Anyway, so there's also another kind of a side element to the story. Our main character also has an older brother, probably, if I had to assume, 15, 16. Usually a Goosebumps main character is like 12, 11, 13, somewhere in there. Since it's middle grade, it's supposed to hit that target audience, that demographic. His brother's like 16, 17, 18. He can drive. He happens to be trying to make a low-budget horror film about this urban legend called the Mud Monsters. Our main character knows the story. We don't really get the story until way later on in the book, about halfway through the book. And the mud monsters themselves are not in this book a whole lot. I do want to tell you that much. I love urban legends. As I said, that's a big proponent of the story, whether they're real or not. And I love that. I think it personally, I love the payoff in the finale of the book. I think it has a great ending to it. There are a lot of Goosebumps books out there that can have a weak ending, but a really great build-up to that. Not a super disappointing ending, but a weak ending. In my personal opinion, I think this is one of the best Goosebumps endings ever. It's kind of quick. It kind of is, there and it's gone, and then the book's over with real quick. It might seem a little rushed to some people, and maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe I'm too biased for it. But for me personally, reading this the second time now after, a couple of years of not reading it, I really dig it still. I think the book is hilarious. It has some great humor in there, especially between our main character and his best friend character. I like the kind of spite between the older brother who's making a horror film and our main kid. I really like all that stuff. I think it really works, and if you love Goosebumps and you haven't read You Can't Scare Me, it's a great place to either reboot your love for it, or to pick up somebody like, I don't know, some friend of yours who wants scary books, or a fan of, or a friend of yours, whatever, whoever's in your life that's into horror, or you want to introduce your kids into horror, give them You Can't Scare Me. It's a really solid read for the most part. It's not too serious if you have a kid you want to show this to, or a nephew or a niece or something, but it's really solid, and I really love it, and I highly recommend it if you haven't read it before. It's a really fun read, and I recommend it a lot. And I'll tell you this, it's one of the few Goosebumps books, and there are quite a few out there, by the way. I'm a big horror fan. I always have been. Movies, books, all that stuff. It's one of the few Goosebumps books, specifically, that have actually given me chills. And even this time around, when I knew what was going to happen, I still got chills from certain moments because of how creepy this book can be. And depending on what kind of fears you have, Goosebumps can kind of, do different things. Some books you might be afraid of spiders. They might target that fear. Or they might do like, a certain monster like the snow monster or something, like Abominable Snowman or something. You know what I mean? This book really hits on a lot of different things that I really personally love. And again, how could you look at this and not love this cover? This is the book I took on vacation, by the way, and the cover is completely falling off on this. I was very upset. And when it eventually does fall off, it will become a poster in my office. Anyway, You Can't Scare Me, the original Goosebumps book. It is number 15 of the original series. I love it. Oh, my camera went blurry. I am so sorry, guys. I love the book. I really recommend it. Really solid read. If it sounds like it appeals to you at all, it is a very short read. I promise you you'll fly through it, because Goosebumps books, like a lot of middle grade books, have a really big font on them. This one will fly through. You'll never really realize that until you really get into it. For me personally, I think from page 1 it really takes off. It really has the humor and the tone that the story needed to have. And for an urban legend fix, dude, this is what you want. I promise you, for novels with kind of an urban legend feel. Anyway, as much as I've repeated myself constantly, if I had to rate You Can't Scare Me on a 5-star basis, I would easily give this a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I thought it was great. I still think it's great, and I do recommend it to anybody, whether you're a Goosebumps fan or not. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Goosebumps number 15, the classic series, by the way, once again, in case you missed that. You Can't Scare Me. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Put all your thoughts and comments down below. Once again, I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you, and goodbye.